Welcome back to another Blender tutorial, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this really cool fish tank scene in Blender. I was originally going to do an animation with this, but I decided just to make it a still render. Now this is my original scene. This is not where we're actually going to be making it. It's almost the same. The only difference is I'm not going to be showing you guys how to do the plant, but the pebbles, the fish, the technique behind that, the floor here, the background, the scene, all the same thing. And as always, I do put the files on Patreon. I will be putting links in the description to free resources that we'll be using, like the fish pictures and stuff. But I like to see what you guys make with these tutorials. I don't usually expect you guys to copy everything I do. I'm more trying to just to introduce a cool little workflow or something you guys can try out for fun as you're going along your Blender journey. So yeah, this is it, and I'll just, you can see the render here, what it looks like, and let's get into it. Okay, so we have a new scene opened up in Blender. I'm using Blender 3.0 actually, so it's just Blender 3. I should really get the latest version. But what you're gonna do is, once you have it opened up, is you're just gonna get rid of everything. Just select it, press X, and delete. What you're gonna do then is you're gonna add in a UV sphere. That's probably the best object to use to get started with making the actual fish bowls. Let's go Shift A, go to the mesh options. Let's add in a UV sphere. Generally, I would put the poly count down a little bit, but let's just leave it as it is. It's not too dense, and we will be adding a subdivision surface modifier anyway. So we're going to go into our front orthographic view. So once again, press 1 on the number pad for front ortho. And with the sphere active, we're just going to tab into our edit mode. And inside of the edit mode, what we're going to do is we're going to press Z, go into wireframe. I know you can use I know people sometimes mention this, you can use the X-ray feature here, so you don't have to go into wireframe. I'm just really used to going to wireframe, so I don't mind pressing Z, going to wireframe while I'm modeling. So in wireframe, I'm just going to select all of these verts here at the bottom like so, maybe up to about this point, okay? And if you want to look at some references online of different fish bowls, go ahead. But what I like to do is just go S, Z, and just flatten it on the Z. So I'm just S, Z. You can press S, Z, 0 to make it perfectly flat. And then you can go G, Z, and just move it up to about here. Now what you can do is you can select this bottom vert, and you can just go to your proportional editing. And with that vertex active, you can go G and then Z, and move up on the Z. But if you roll the middle mouse button, you can decrease the fall off. So just bring that up a little bit. Almost all bowls have this sort of feature in the bottom to give strength and also to help it sit on a uneven surface. So with that done, you're going to come over here, Control R or Command R to add in a loop. Just left click once and then just move down to slide the loop. And now that's just going to help with the subdiv modifier when we add it. So let's now go and select the top vertex. So just click on it, Control plus to grow the selection, and let's just grow it to about there, or maybe one more. Okay, right about there, and we're going to go X and just delete faces. Then we're going to go turn off proportional editing, Shift A, and then while you're holding in Shift and A, just click on an edge that selects the whole edge. E to extrude, S to scale, and let's just scale out to about here, and then G, Z, move it up, so right about there. And this is the lip of the bowl. You can then deselect everything. Shift Alt again, just click on the edge to loop select the edge, and then go Control B or Command B, and you can create a bevel. If you roll the middle mouse button, you can edit the amount of segments. So let's go with something like that. Doesn't have to be too dense with the segments. Remember, we are adding a subdiv modifier, so about that much is actually fine. So this is a pretty standard bowl. We're going to hit A to select everything, G, Z, and move it up till it's just sitting on the floor there, like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our modifiers, and let's give this a subdivision surface modifier. And let's just also give it a solidify, because obviously it's not paper thin. And let's just take that solidify, drag it above the subdiv, and let's just increase that thickness. Now we're going to bring it into the positive value, not the negative. So bring it in about as much as you feel is okay. I'm going to go with nothing more than 0.5 because we don't want it to be too thick. In fact, if it's easier, just type in 0.045 maybe, something like that. Okay, that looks okay. And then I'm just going to tab out. And with this object active, right click and just go shade smooth. And there we have a pretty simple fishbowl, nothing too flash. Let's add in a floor. So we're going to go Shift A, go to our mesh options, add in a plane. S to scale that plane up like so, and then S, X, and scale it along the X. And that's pretty much our table here. So we're just going to right click and shade smooth. And we're also going to go Control A and just apply to scale. Anything you've scaled, go Control A or Command A and apply that scale. Okay, so let's set up a camera. I know we deleted the one earlier, but let's just set up our own camera. So we're going to come to our front view. I'm going to come about here, Shift A, just add in a camera. The camera should be active, hit 0 to go into camera view, and then G, middle mouse button, and just pull your camera back. You can also just manually move the camera into viewport by pressing G, but place it somewhere where you like. I'm going to go with something like this. We can always adjust it later, so don't worry too much. But if you double tap R while you're in camera mode, you can rotate it around the origin of the camera. I'm going to bring mine a little bit lower and then just rotate it up. I'm also going to come to my camera settings. I'm going to make the focal length 95. I really like that kind of shallow look, and maybe move the camera out just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. That's looking okay for now. What we can do as well is just select the floor here, Shift D and then Y and move it back. Then R, X, 90 and hit enter. So we just have a plane there in the background that's going to serve as our wall. Doesn't have to have any details or furniture. You can add it if you want, but we're going to be adding some depth of field. So we're really just going to be seeing the tank here and the fish as the focal element. So there we have a basic fish tank setup, camera. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be modeling the actual little fishies. So before we get into modeling our fish, we need a good reference, and the reference in this case is also going to serve as a texture. So you can find any image. I'm going to put this one in the description below. It's just a neon tetra. It's a cute little fish and it'll work really well. So what you're going to do is just go free download and download it. I've already done that. And what I did is I just took the downloaded image and I dragged it onto my desktop, or wherever you want to put it on your computer, it's fine. So hopping back into our Blender scene, let's just get a little bit more organized here. So let's just take the objects we already have. Let's just select them all. Let's just press M and let's just create a new collection. Let's just call it ball and scene. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. Press OK. And let's just untick that so we don't see it. We just want to be on our main collection. Let's go into our front orthographic view. And now what you can do is you can take that tetra image, just drag it in, and let's just go Shift A. Let's just add in a cube. And what you can do is maybe enable the X-ray mode, if that makes things easier. And we're going to tab into edit mode. And at this point, we're just going to select the cube and we're going to go S and just scale it down till it's about the height of the fish. And let's just bring it down a little bit. We don't want to go too far away from the origin point here, so just keep that in mind. If you have to, just move the image up a little bit or rotate it. But for now, you know, just back into edit mode. If I can select the actual cube. In fact, let's just move that image back so it's not intersecting with the cube. There we go. So selecting the cube, back into edit mode. Let's just select this face here. Let's just go E to extrude it to the front a little bit. And then we're going to go S, Z, and scale it down onto Z. Extrude it one more time. S, Z, flatten it, and just move it to the nose. And all we're doing here is very roughly making the shape of the fish. Okay, so this is all we're doing. S, Z, just extruding, and then flattening it on the Z. This does not have to be very detailed. And at this point, you can rotate the face a little bit, E to extrude out like so, S, Z, and just select the different parts, move them out till they make more sense. Okay, so there we have a very rough shape. Let's just go into the side view, so right orthographic, select everything and go S, Y, and just flatten it a little bit, but not too much. And now we're going to go Control R or Command R, just to add in a cut in the middle. And then Control R and then roll in just 2 loops like so. And then we're going to press A to select everything. We're going to go to our smooth tool and just smooth it all out just a little bit. Now you can enable proportional editing and just slightly adjust the mesh here. So then we need to make these parts here. So what we can do is just select 2 verts here at the back, Shift D to duplicate, and let's just turn off proportional editing. Let's just go S to scale them up, G to move them in, and then we're going to go E and extrude them out like so, S to scale. Then we're going to select these 2 verts here, holding in Shift, and then go E to extrude them, rotate, and just move them up here. Control R to add an extra loop, and this just refine things a little bit more. And maybe let's just extrude this edge here out and bring it in like that. Okay, so that's looking pretty okay. Let's just take 2 verts over here, Shift D, And let's do the exact same thing here. Okay, so you can do this however you want, but you can see here the overall idea is actually really simple. It can be pretty messy too. Don't worry too much about topology. Okay, something like that looks fine. And then if you wanted to, you could just grab that same fin, just duplicate it, and then just go R, X 180 to rotate it the other way around. And then you can just move it here. And at this point, just enable proportional editing and just very roughly also enable connected only. And just very roughly, you know, match this up. So I'm just deleting some parts if I don't need them. Just real quick, lining this up. It can be as messy as it needs to be. We're not seeing it up close. And then one more time. And then we got that rear fin there. And that's, I think, good enough now for a fish. Let's just go into solid. Let's just go out of the X-ray. And let's just see what it looks like. Let's just go to our top view. And what we can do is just select this vertex at the back of the fish. Let's just go to our proportional editing and go S, Y, and just flatten it on the Y a little bit. Okay. Maybe this here as well. And maybe at the front, just a little bit. Okay, I think that looks okay. Let's just tab out, right click and go shade smooth in object mode. And now we're going to go to our materials, click on new, and let's just call this material fish. And let's just go to the base color and give it an image texture. Come to the drop down and then select that neon tetra image. It should be here because we dragged it into Blender. Go to your UV editing, go to your front view over here, A to select everything. And then you can go U and project from view. Now it's projected those UVs in the view, and we're going to come over here and we're going to go S to scale, R to rotate it a bit, and all we're doing is just matching it up to the image. So scale it, rotate it, and if you have to slightly use proportional editing just to kind of maneuver it into place, go ahead and do that as well. Spend as much time as you want. Like I said, I'm being pretty messy with this. So if you want to see it over here, what it looks like, just press Z and go into material preview. And now you can see you have your little fish. So let's go back into object mode. Let's go back to layout. And we can now get this reference, press X and delete that reference. Now you can go ahead and create as many different fish as you want using this method. Go ahead, find some free images. I'm just going to stick with this one for now. And let's just enable our fishbowl scene. Just grab our little fish here and let's just go S to scale that fish down. And then G to move the fish up, scale it down till it makes sense visually. And yeah, we're not going to duplicate it just now, but let's just rotate it, move it over to the side a bit, because the plant, if you're going to add a plant, you'd add it in the middle, but we're not adding a plant in this tutorial. But there we have a fish, a bowl, our scene. And because the fish is on that first collection, let's just double click on that collection and call it fish. So now we have a fish collection that we can turn on and off when we need to. So everything's coming together quite well. What we're going to do now is we're just going to make our little pebbles and we're going to simulate them falling into the bowl. And that'll be about the last thing we do with the modeling, and then we can start doing our lighting and some more basic texturing. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the description below and you're going to find a link to these pebbles. You can get any image of pebbles or rocks you want. We're just going to be using it as our texture. So download it somewhere in your computer. And I have mine downloaded, so I'm just going to drag it onto my desktop just because I like to put it there. And let's get back into Blender. Now inside of Blender, what we're going to do is we're going to just, let's just unhide or turn off, I should say, these two layers here, or the collections. And let's just add in an object. We're going to go Shift A, we're going to go to our mesh options and add in a cube. And we're just going to tab into edit mode. And with all of that active, right click and go subdivide. And at this point, you can just use your proportional editing and just select a vert on the end. It doesn't really matter how you do this. Just make a rough looking pebble shape. And once you have something, what you can do is you can go back into object mode and just go to your materials, click new, and then just go find the base color here, click on that, and then go image texture, click on open, and then find that image that you downloaded of the pebbles and just click open. And let's just go into our editing workspace, or our UV editing workspace. Press A to select all of the geometry over here, and then just go U and project from view. And then over here, you can select the geometry, S to scale it down over in this window, and just go G and move it, and just line that up to some sort of little rock somewhere, just to give it some interesting texture. Okay, it's just very rough. And then you can tab back into object mode in this window, right click, and then go shade smooth. And also go Shift D to duplicate this rock or pebble, and then tab into edit mode of that one. Come over here and just grab the selection and go G and move it to a different rock. And you can see here, if you go Z and you go material preview, you can see the different rocks here. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a few more. So back into object mode, Shift D, duplicate it, tab in, and move it somewhere else. Okay, well, now that I have that done, what I'm going to do is just select all of them, press tab to go into edit mode, and in here I'm just going to randomize them a little bit, so make them all look a little bit different, so they don't all look exactly the same. And now that that's done, with all of them selected, press M, go new collection, and let's call this Pebbles, and then press OK. And now we can go back to our layout, and let's just go G, Z, and move these pebbles up. And let's enable our other collections. And we're just going to select these pebbles. We're going to go S to scale them down. G, move them down close to the fish tank here. And just scale them down to how big you think they should be. Look at some references. You get different scales of pebbles, so it really isn't right or wrong how big you want them. I'm going to go with something like that. It's extremely important that you go Control A or Command A and apply the scale if you want to do a simulation. So Control A, Command A, and make sure to apply that scale. Once you have that done, what you can do is you can kind of place them in the tank here, or the inside of the tank roughly. So maybe a little bit more up. And then just go Shift D and duplicate it a whole bunch of times. Now I know there's a whole bunch of more efficient ways to do this, but I don't want to get too complicated. So I'm just going Shift D to duplicate a whole bunch of times. So what you can then do is just disable the other two collections, select all of these stones, Shift D, Z, and duplicate a few more going up like that. And what we can do as well, while we just have our pebbles here, just select any one of these pebbles, go to the physics tab and then give it a rigid body. And you can leave all the settings as they are. What you need to do is, with that one that you added it to, the active one selected, press A to select everything else, so the rest of the pebbles. And now what you can do is you can press F3 on your keyboard and just type in copy. And then you can go copy from active over here. And now if you click on any one of these pebbles, you can see they have those exact same dynamics there. So what we need to do now is bring back our fishbowl, or our scene and our fishbowl. And let's just select the fishbowl itself, and let's give that a rigid body, but this one has to be passive. So come to the type and make it passive. And it's extremely important that you come to the collision and that you make it mesh, otherwise it won't work. You also can select your floor, give that a rigid body, and just leave that one at convex hull, but make it passive as well. So now if you go to frame 1 over here, so make sure you're in frame 1, if you press the spacebar, you're going to get the simulation of pebbles. See how cool is that? Okay, so you got all your little pebbles in there. You can go Z, go material, and you can see what it looks like. But that's not really enough pebbles. So what we're going to do, and this is completely up to you how much processing capacity your computer has, but what you're going to do is just hide the ball and the scene. We just have our pebbles. You can select all of these pebbles again, Shift D, Z, and move up a few more. And you can go Shift R to repeat that action a few more times. And I'm going to go with about that many pebbles. I'm going to bring back my ball. Go to frame 1, I'm going to press the space bar and just keep simulating that. And you can see it's a bit slower of a simulation, but now there's some more pebbles. So I'm going to go with something like that for now. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go to my rigid scene, my scene properties here, and I'm going to go down to the rigid body world. And I'm just going to go to the cache, and I'm going to make it something like 80. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bake. So I'm going to bake the simulation into the blend file. And there we have it. It's now baked into our blend file. So if you play the simulation, you can see there it is. Now we're just going to pause at any particular frame and somewhere toward the end of it. And that's where we're going to do our render. We're not going to bother like turning this into just one object or anything like that. So let's now press Z, let's go rendered, and let's see what our pebbles look like. Obviously, we don't have a material yet on the glass. So let's just quickly go over to our render settings. Let's make the render engine cycles. Let's make the device a GPU. If you have a CPU, you can stick with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the render quickly and just set the max samples to 120 and make sure that the denoiser is enabled. So that's all we have to do for that. And let's just press Z and let's go rendered. And let's now go to our world settings and let's go to the color. Click on this little tab and let's give this a sky texture. And for now, let's just go into our camera view by pressing 0. And in your camera view, you can go Control B and just limit, so drag over the camera and just limit the render to the camera. And then you can select your fishbowl, quickly go to your material, and we'll work on the materials a little bit more, but just gonna quickly give it a material. Let's call it glass. And then go to your surface here. And in fact, let's just leave it as a principled, but just scroll down and let's just go down to the transmission and drag that all the way up to 1. And let's just go up to the roughness and bring that down almost to 0. So one more thing that I actually forgot to model was the water itself. So that's really simple. Just select the fishbowl itself, tab into edit mode, disable proportional editing, and with all of this mesh active, just go Shift D to duplicate it, and then go P and then separate by selection, and then tab back into object mode, and then with that new object that you've duplicated, just select it, and then go over to your modifiers and just get rid of this solidify. Tab into edit mode and then press A to select all of that geometry. Alt S and just scale it in along the normals till it's in the inside. And at this point, you can just select all of the top verts, press X and delete those verts. And what we want is just the height of whatever you want your water to be. So in this case, I've just deleted it up to here. I'm going to select all of these verts. I'm going to go E to extrude, S to scale a little bit. And then G, Z, bring that down to make a little bit of a lip. And that's just to kind of fake the surface tension of water. It kind of sticks up a little bit on the surface of an object. And we're going to go E to extrude, S to scale. And then E to extrude, S to scale even more. And then F to fill that in. Now you could add a displacement at the top here, make it a little bit wavy, just to make it look like there's some ripples in the water. I'm not going to do that. For now, I'm just going to tab back out into object mode. I'm going to go to my materials, get rid of that glass, create a new one. I'm going to call it water. You guys can do this as well. And then just go down to the roughness, bring that down to 0. Go over to the transmission, bring them up to 1. And then let's just go to the color and just make it slightly green to make the water look a little bit greenish, almost a little bit of algae in there. Then we're going to press Z, go rendered, and then go into your camera view. And you should see we have some water now. Now it looks kind of horrible because we just have the light, just the standard world light that we put in there. We're still going to mess with our materials and lighting a little bit. But let's just also bring in our fish again. So click on the fish collection and then drop down that Pebbles collection so it's a bit neater. But you can see here we have some of the basic things starting here for our scene. What we're going to do now, like I said, is more materials, better lighting, and we're going to make this look a little bit cooler and give our fishy a few friends. Okay, so we're going to download this texture here. I'll explain it in a second, but I just want to say at this point, the audio should sound a little bit better. I was able to figure out some of the issues with my microphone, so hopefully it's more comfortable to listen to from this point on. But I'm going to put also in the description below a link to this texture here on Polyhaven. All you have to do here is come to the resolution. So I'm going to go with 4K, which is the default. And you just can click here on download. It's about 70 megabytes. So when that's done downloading, and I'm just putting that extracted folder on my desktop. You can place yours wherever you want, but let's hop back into that Blender scene. And now what we're going to do is we could add that texture, but let's just quickly just set up a few lights. Now we already had our render and everything set up, so we're just going to go Z, go into rendered, and you know, you can go into your camera view with the restricted boundaries like that. If it's a little bit better performance, you're going to go Shift A, just add in a light and add in an area light, and then go G, Z, move it up like so. And then what you can do is go to your light settings and give that a strength of 100 for now, and then just increase the size of that light. You can go to your world settings and just bring the strength down to 0.3 on that light, or the skylight if it's a little bit too strong. About 1.3, 1.4 should be okay. And at this point, you can just take this light and you can mess around with the strength and the color a little bit till you get something that you like. For now, I'm just going to keep it at that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the floor. I'm going to go to my shading workspace. And at this point, let's just create a new material. Let's just call it floor. And we're going to go Shift A. We're going to go search and type an image. Just get a simple image texture, click on open, and then you're going to go to wherever that downloaded textures are. You're going to open that folder and just get the color or the diffuse. Open that up and plug it into the base color. Now if you press Z, go rendered, go into your camera view, you should be able to see a wood texture here. Now this is already UV unwrapped, but it's a little bit stretched. So what you could do is you could just tab into edit mode, or just go into your UV editor here actually. And inside of edit mode, you can just go U and unwrap. And there you have it. You can kind of increase the scale a little bit. Keep in mind, this is a seamless texture, so you won't have any sort of tiling issues. But let's just go back to the shading workspace. And let's just add in a few more of those image textures. So we're going to go Shift D, duplicate that, and let's just get the roughness. So we're going to click on a little folder. Let's just get that roughness there. Let's plug that roughness into the roughness of the principled. And what we need to do is come here and make the color space non-color. That's actually really important. A lot of people miss that. Then we're going to go Shift D, duplicate that, and let's just click on that little folder again. Let's get the normal, like open image, and we're going to go Shift A, search, and just get a normal map, and then plug your color into the color of the normal map, and then that normal output goes into the normal of the principled. Now also make sure to set that to non-color data, and there you have it. Now we have a nice looking wood material, and it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we can also select the background here. Go new, and let's just call that BG for background. And let's just go with kind of like a darker kind of wool. You could add a texture to that if you wanted to, I suppose, but I like to go for something a little bit darker. It just kind of helps the fish stand out in a really cool kind of way. And you can also go to your world settings over here, world properties, and you can mess around with that sun rotation as well. That's another thing that could really help with your scene. So try something a little bit different. You know, the lighting can look quite cool depending on how you rotate that light. So maybe I'll go with something like this for now. And also maybe bring the sun elevation up a little bit so it's a little bit bluer in the lights, a little bit more in the middle of the day. So that'll look good, but our materials still need a little bit of work. So let's select our fishbowl. And with that glass material, what we're going to do is we're going to come and bring that roughness all the way down, even more, almost to 0. But we need to come here to the IOR. And let's make that 1.3. And let's just select that water inside of there. And let's just take that IOR and let's just drag that down just a little bit till we get something that works a little bit better for us. So around 1.3 should be okay as well. And just so you know, with that glass material, just select that again. You can come here to the base color and make sure that value is fully white so it doesn't look too dark. The fish here, on the other hand, we can also just select that fish, go to your top view and just scale that fish down just a little bit, and then go Shift D and then rotate it. At this point, you can create a few more little fishies and just place them in a way that kind of looks like they're just swimming and interacting. Yeah, you can make them all look a little bit different, make different fishes like I said earlier. Add some plants if you want, some more pebbles. But you can see, you know, just even adding a few more of those guys really helps a lot. So I'm also going to select my camera and just rotate it up a little bit more and then bring it down. Okay, so my recording cut out there just for a few seconds and I missed some of the recording. So what I'm going to explain, what I did is I just went into edit mode with these objects here and I just scaled them just a little bit more, adjusting them till they weren't intersecting so much, and that helped with a few of the problems. Also just make sure that the floor here isn't intersecting with the bowl. But that's pretty much it. I haven't really done too much more than that. This is the pretty much the basis of the scene. So go ahead, add more fish, add some plants and stuff. But one more thing we're just going to do is select this camera and then go to camera settings, and then you're going to go to depth of field, click on the little eyedropper and select the fish tank, and then go rendered, and then just bring that focal stop down, focus down, just till you get this nice blurriness in the background. So nice soft focus. So something like 0.4 or 0.5 should be okay, and that already looks pretty cool, maybe even 0.6. So what we're going to do, we're going to quickly save and we're going to go render and give this a quick test render. and see what that looks like. And there we have it. The denoiser is also kicked in, and it's done a pretty good job of rendering it. Now, I just wanted to teach, like I said in the beginning, I just wanted to teach the kind of idea here. Definitely go ahead, add more pebbles if you want. Sometimes it's not uncommon to see these tanks a little bit sparse with the pebbles. Add some plants, mess around with that IOR in Blender. I did look up some of the actual IOR properties of glass and water, and I tried to actually go with them, the real life ones, but they didn't actually work out that well. So I was kind of just messing around with it. And sometimes you get a little bit different results when you do things again. But overall, I think this is a fun little project, and I'm going to quickly show you guys my original, which was pretty much the exact same workflow. Okay, so here you guys can see my original. It's the exact same thing. I just messed around with my lighting just a little bit more, but it's the same materials, same textures, and I added a simple plant. And honestly, that is about it. I mean, there really isn't much more to this. It's a fun little project. I'm going to be putting these blend files on my Patreon. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Definitely share it on social media, the things you guys have done. Check out some of my other videos, and if this was too complicated, I do apologize. I do have some other videos that might be a little bit easier. And always remember, you can also use the link in the description, and you can sign up for Skillshare for free for 1 month. And I've got a whole bunch of cool stuff in there about character creation, stuff that's for absolute beginners even. And it's definitely worth checking out if you want to, not take a risk. You can, pull out after a month. You don't have to pay. And yeah, I think I've said enough. I hope you guys stay safe, and thanks for watching.